Threshold is the amount of product experience you need before you start looking interesting to recruiters. So then the question becomes, how do you get to that threshold level of experience needed?
Imagine a recruiter reading the following line on your resume that built and launched such and such app with 36,000 downloads. I mean, that's a slam dunk right there.
As a student, those are 4 different things that you could look at to gain product experience. If you're already employed, but you want to make that jump to product management, what I always recommend is
I'm Naman Pandey. This is the Ready Set Do podcast, and in this episode, featured not guru is Jackie Henning. Jackie is a product manager at Cylinder, and through her content, has helped hundreds of aspiring product managers break into PM. Therefore, naturally, we go over the exact steps that anyone willing to break into PM can take, including actionable tools and resources to facilitate your transition. In the last section, we cover how you can use AI to absolutely turbocharge your journey and stand out from all of your competitors.
just quickly to list out the 3 shifts. The first one is automation of basic tasks, writing tickets, ERDs. The second shift is advancements or innovations in how we're developing products. The third shift is this rise of AI native features in products. And what I mean by this is
you must have seen some common pitfalls that a lot of people fall prey to. I know we covered a major one, right? Just go build something, get your hands dirty. What would be some of the other ones? In line with our theme of learning from somebody that's just a few steps ahead of us instead of a guru, my goal with this episode is to help any aspiring PM out there to successfully make that transition into a PM role.
anyone can take a course online and get a certification. I think what really sets somebody apart is
Subscribe on YouTube and any of your favorite podcast apps for weekly episodes featuring not gurus and daily knowledge bites from those episodes on Instagram and YouTube. Also check out the other episodes I've made around product management. I'll link them in the description below the like button. And now, without any further ado, here's Jackie. Welcome to the only podcast in the world featuring stories of high agency individuals who are just a few steps ahead of us. Jackie, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So excited to deep dive into product management and all of the various amazing things that you share on your LinkedIn. And for our listeners, first of all, go follow Jackie's LinkedIn. She's amazing, posts such great content, especially if you're looking into breaking into product management, anything related to product. Go follow her right away, but immediately come back because we have a lot of interesting things to talk about today. And I want to start off with somewhat of what is now a tradition on the podcast, which is that what is your controversial opinion slash hot take around breaking into PM? I know because you're so deeply involved into this, you must have a few, but can you, help us get the ball rolling with just
Yes.
one of your hot takes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a great way to kick off the podcast. And I think there is kind of a lot of misinformation out there around how to break into product. And just to kind of get it out there, I think the main thing that I see a lot of aspiring product managers focusing on when they want to break in is certifications. I hear that all the time.
I've heard that
Um,
as well.
really?
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Like in my DMs, they'll be asking me, "Hey Jackie, I want to break in. Which certification should I get? Should I get an Agile certification or should I get one of those product manager certifications?" Sometimes they're offered through universities, and there's so many offered online nowadays. But that's definitely something that I get asked about a lot. My take on this is, a certification can't really, it can only take you so far.
Mm.
And I think the main thing here is, anyone can take a course online and get a certification. I think what really sets somebody apart, and it can really set you up for a career in product management is actual product experience. I know it's nothing like revolutionary. It's not like a golden ticket into the field by any means, but nothing can replace good old experience in product.
No, I think that's such a wonderful call out, especially because of just kind of how transferable it is to even other domains, right? So,
Yes.
um, something that I was doing back in the day when I was in graduate school was trying to apply for project management roles. And for whatever reason, I just developed this notion that I have to get a PMP. If I don't have a PMP, there is just no point to anything. So the first and only thing I need to do is get a PMP, and I never ended up getting it just because.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to your point, how far does that really get you, and also what are you really learning from that? Right, you're just watching videos that might or might not add any value to that. So yeah, I think that definitely rings true. And I think that's also a decent segue for if there is a young person, that is looking at breaking into product management. What would your advice be to them? Like, what are some of the first couple steps maybe that you would recommend that they take to, achieve that goal?
hmm Well, usually whenever I talk to folks that are aspiring product managers, I explain the concept of the threshold. I like to call it the threshold.
And
So
I know, sorry to interrupt, but I know you had a post on that, which I will pull up when this is airing. So it will help listeners to understand, visually what you're saying. But
absolutely,
just
yeah, great idea. So what is the threshold? So the threshold is the amount of product experience you need before you start looking interesting to recruiters, right? So, you know, ambition can only get you so far. Resume tweaks and keyword stuffing can only get you so far. But there's, like I said, a certain level of product experience that you really need to get to before a recruiter looks at your resume and says, "Yeah, they look interesting. Let's give them that initial screener call." So then the question becomes, how do you get to that threshold level of experience needed? I think there's a couple different ways to get product experience, and it kind of boils down to, if it's kind of like a decision tree, right? Like the first question would be, are you a student or are you already kind of employed, right?
gotcha.
So if we focus on the folks who, like, maybe we'll start with the student, right?
Uh,
So if you're in school, what can you do to start gaining product experience? Of course, the most traditional way you can do it is do some sort of product manager internship. A lot of different companies offer PM internships, and if you're lucky, like they might actually offer you a full PM role at the end of the internship. That's kind of the most typical way, right? But there's other things you can do too. You could join a side project on campus. Maybe there's a group of people starting a startup. That could be really interesting.
or something like you did too, right? Any vested interest in, yeah, in just whatever you care about necessarily.
Exactly. That was the other thing I was going to mention
Oh,
was
so
no, you're fine. But yeah, so you can see what other kind of work or research is being done on your campus. For example, like if you were at UT, you could have messaged that professor I was working with and expressed your interest in that
Mhm.
product and then offered to help out. I mean, then it's mutually beneficial for both you as a student and the professor that, you're working for. So that's another way you could get experience. The other way that I think is becoming more interesting is building your own product. There's so many ways nowadays to, start building your own apps, using these different tools through AI and make it a lot easier now than it was before. So I think as a student, those are four different things that you could look at to gain
Amazing.
product experience.
Yep.
To move over to the corporate side, so if you're already employed, right, and you're already in the corporate world, but you want to make that jump to product management, again, you have to reach that threshold, right?
Yeah.
And so in this case, um, you almost have a leg up from the people that are students because maybe, depending on your role, you might have the opportunity to work closely with other product managers. And so, what I always recommend is, find ways to collaborate on projects at your company in a way that allows you to kind of pick up the roles and responsibilities of a PM yourself. And so maybe they're starting a new initiative that, sounds interesting. Maybe you can reach out to the product managers at your company or, the people involved in that project and kind of get your name in there and see if there's anything that you could help with, even if it's something small like, I don't know, helping to take interview notes,
Yeah.
right? Or do competitive research. Because again, it's like a mutually beneficial thing for both you and, in this case, your company.
Uh, so going back to, um, just explore a little bit more around what you said with the threshold, which I think is it's such a helpful visual concept, right, for anybody to understand immediately. So, um, it sounds like, like just in terms of a TLDR, get your hands dirty, right? You have to be doing things in and around the product space to reach that in one way or form. Now, how you do that can look different, and you just laid them out. But would that be a right thing to say that it's not enough to watch YouTube videos, do certifications, as you were saying before, but you have to be getting your hands dirty one way or the other, and that is probably your, I don't know, biggest way, or that's where like the maximum juice is. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's kind of, when you're looking at the steps involved here to break into product management, I think that's gonna be kind of the biggest blocker for most people is getting quality product experience. Because yeah, to your point, I don't think you can no number of YouTube videos or certifications can really make up that gap. So it's like you said, I love the way you put that. It's just getting your hands dirty, um, reaching out to people, see where you can be useful, and then do that, as many times as you need to so that you can reach that threshold. And then that's when you start building up your resume and start applying.
Amazing. And just to take this just one layer deeper, through my own really lived experience and through just talking to a bunch of my friends that are way more serious about breaking into product than I am, one thing that one thing that comes out on top often is that despite there being an intent from their end to, as you said, be more hands-on with the projects that they're working on, it just so happens sometimes, just that there just isn't anything that they can do. Their plates are already so full with their day jobs at their work, even though if it can be a tech company, but they're just not, necessarily able to do anything there. Now, I really like what you said about build your own app or product, right? That makes perfect sense. They can do that. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. So my question really is that when you are doing that, or say you use one of the AI vibe coding tools, which I have a bunch of videos on that for anybody listening, so feel free to check those out. But say you do that, right? You give it a good shot. You make like a decently light-ish product. Obviously, this is not you're not expected to make like a 7 pager, various navigation flows, etc. And then what? Like, is the goal then to get users, or is that just meant to be a pet project? Like, how should one approach that in their mind?
I love that question. Yeah. I think there's different ways you can take it, and it really depends on what you're really trying to get out of it. So, if your goal is to build up your technical expertise, then maybe just, pulling up Cursor or Lovable or one of these like other vibe coding tools. I guess Cursor isn't really vibe coding, but like Lovable
Yeah.
definitely is. Um, that's probably enough, right, for you to start demonstrating some of those technical skills. But I would actually argue that something that would be even more beneficial is kind of what you're describing. If you can kind of approach it like, you're not just building something, but you're trying to build something that is useful to someone somewhere out there, and then actually try to get it in their hands. Because then that's when you really start to think like a product manager. It's like not just building something for the sake of building something,
Hmm.
but actually going through the stages of, product development, starting from discovery, refinement, right? Maybe you're talking to some folks, learning some things about pain points, and then you can even build out a PRD if you want. So a product requirements document, list out the requirements, break it out into phases even so you get some experience sequencing some work,
Right.
and then feed that into a tool like Lovable and actually see that come to life. And then afterwards, that's when the fun part really starts. You can start sharing it. Go back to the people you interviewed. Hopefully, it's a problem you have too. So maybe you can start using it and seeing if it suits your use case. Um, but yeah, I think that would be an incredible experience for anyone who's trying to break into product to do. Because one, it takes you through the whole, like I said, the whole product life cycle from development to the actual execution. Um, but also it's completely in your hands.
Right.
And that's what I love about it is that you don't have to, you need
To anybody, right? Yeah.
exactly like you don't
It's
have to
your,
beg.
yeah.
It's yours. Like you don't have to beg for an internship and wait for callbacks. You don't have to message all these different researchers on campus and hope that they have something ready for you. You can just start this today. Like
Truly.
list out pain points, things that you're struggling with and you wish existed. List those out today and then start actually building it. I think it's an awesome opportunity for
Yeah.
anyone to do.
No, totally. And I was, as you were saying that, I just thought of, imagine a recruiter reading the following line on your resume that, built and launched such and such app with, 36,000 downloads. I mean, that's a slam dunk right there. It seems to me, I don't know anything about recruiting, but I would hope that that should be enough to get somebody noticed, right? At the very least.
Exactly. Yes, like the think about the quality of the bullets that, like, you could write if you
Wow.
actually did this and you add users on your app. I mean, it could be as simple as, like, you could use percentages here. You could say, like, had, like, 50% growth in the first 4 weeks, even if you had 50 users
Totally.
and you increased it from
Absolutely. Yeah. And
I can't do the
well,
math, but
and yeah, especially being in even content, which obviously it's way easier than the product game. 50 users is no joke, right? Like it is a lot. Like, yeah, it's not even something to be, like taken lightly at all. So yeah,
exactly.
I love that. That's so helpful. And yeah, isn't it just amazing that these tools have enabled this now? Because imagine us having the same conversation even 2 years ago, this wouldn't be possible. Like we would just probably both be stumped. We would be just like,
Yes. I
"Oh, you're crude."
Well, that's a story I have because and I actually am gonna write a post about this next week.
Awesome.
Um, but so in my master's program, when I was kind of learning about product management, I was like just, learning about the technical side of things, like, oh, they have to be a little bit technical. Okay, but I don't really know anything about
Mm.
anything technical.
Yeah.
So I told my the researcher I was working with, because she was kind of helping me figure out what courses to take, right? So I told her about this and she was like, "Well, why don't you take like a coding class?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to take a course and learn how to build my own app and I want to put it on the App Store."
Yeah.
Perfect. So somehow I was able to finagle my way into this Swift coding class, which is the language, just for your listeners, it's a language that people use to build apps, iOS apps. And I quickly realized after, like, the first couple classes, I was, like, way over my head. It's like, I didn't even know how to set up this thing on my local machine, like,
Yeah.
my computer. I didn't know what environments were. I didn't know any of that. I didn't do the hello world, like, exercise. Like, that's, like, engineering 101. It was like a 5th grader in, like, 12th grade literature class. It was intense. Um, but so I did end up dropping that course because I was like, "Okay, I can't this is way too difficult." But later on in my master's, this was something else I did. I did start a, startup with a friend of mine, and he, was a software engineer or he had a engineering, he was studying engineering, and now he's a software engineer for, I think, Apple, or he was at Apple. Yeah, so super smart guy, and still, friends with him. And so we collaborated and, worked on this app together. It was essentially app to help student organizations on campus track attendance. Nothing too revolutionary. Yeah.
But it solves the problem, right? That's all you need sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and we piloted with a couple of organizations on campus. But my point is, I had to go through this whole experience of like trying this Swift class and then dropping out and then being like, well, I still want to build an app. Let me find a technical co-founder. And, even working with him, it took about 6 weeks to get our
Yeah.
MVP on the App Store.
Wow.
But nowadays, it's a lot easier than it was.
So much easier. Yeah. And just somebody that comes from, this space, it does kind of break my heart that just how difficult it is to set things up. I feel like most of my friends that ask me, or used to ask me, I should say, how do I get started, blah, blah.
Mhm.
2 days later, they're like, I give up. Like, I just straight up give up because it should not be this hard for me to set up what's everything that's needed for me to start learning. Like to go from minus point 0.5 to zero itself tripped just so many people up. And,
Fair.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone now, right? Because now you can shoot straight from zero to 100 in 2 days. You don't have to
Yeah.
understand all of it, but it's something you can ship.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like there's still this learning curve, I think, that kind of might deter some people from trying. And I'm not saying I'm an expert at any of these tools either,
Yeah, neither am I. Because, yeah,
but I
I
don't think
stopped coding a
anyone
long time
is.
ago. Yeah. Well, some of
Yeah,
my friends that actually write code, as you said, I think that was your call out around cursor was so important because my friends that actually are software developers, they almost exclusively use cursor.
really.
And I think
Yeah.
that's in my head. That's like when you've used cursor to do vibe coding, that's when you know you've made it.
Nice. Okay, I gotta use cursor more often. Um, no, yeah. So, but that's the thing, right? Like it's definitely going to be a little bit of a learning curve at first. But no one's an expert, right? And so just get in there and start poking around and it should be fun. Like I think it's a fun opportunity for
No,
folks.
I agree. Yeah, I have tried to make a couple apps. Just these are just small web apps,
Hmm.
and it was just yeah, as you said, um, this is something that you think should exist, right? And I just feel
Yes.
like stop right there. You don't need to overcomplicate it.
Hmm.
That's literally all it is. Just go make something that you think would make your world better. Doesn't even have to be everybody's world, right? So that's really cool. And then kind of going on from there because you're such a vocal advocate for this space and you help so many people. I'm sure in your time you must have seen just some common pitfalls that a lot of people fall prey to, and which can also be rephrased as what are some lower hanging fruits that, well, maybe poisonous fruits that should and can be avoided by people that are looking to break into product. I know we covered a major one, right? Don't overthink, just go build something, get your hands dirty. But what would be some of the other ones that you see a lot?
Yeah. So yeah, just don't be afraid and get your hands dirty. Don't over rely. So I guess it's related, but don't rely too much on certifications.
Hmm.
But I think the third one I would add to this list is don't worry too much about the ATS scan. I think some folks are
Oh,
almost
interesting.
like over, like, I guess sometimes I feel like people take this advice a little bit too hard, or too much to heart. And what I mean by this is I've been reviewing some resumes from aspiring PMs, and
Wow,
it's
that's so
getting,
nice of you.
yeah, of course, yeah, it's getting to the point though where I've noticed like some bullet points, like they don't really make a lot of sense, and it's because
Okay,
I think they're trying to keyword stuff a little bit.
I see.
Like, so my point is, yes, you want your resume to get through that initial scan if the company uses like a system to scan for keywords. But at the end of the day, if you've done the steps to gain product experience and you've really thought through each and every bullet on your resume and found a way to frame it in a way where it shows your value and what kind of outcomes you can achieve, then I think you're pretty much all the way there. And if you want to keyword stuff, like you can put a skills section at the bottom.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
works too. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's such a good call out, actually. And on this podcast, I've had an ex recruiter from Google who
Hmm.
actually said something very similar. She also maintained that you have to, in your head, when writing your resume, optimize for the fact that a human is reading your resume,
Yes.
and there's just no two ways about it, according to what she said. Which, so yeah, it's funny how that comes full circle. And yeah, I know we discussed product management's overlap with AI from the perspective of somebody that's trying to break in. But I also want to explore that same overlap from the context of people that are already employed as product managers. And maybe this will also bleed a little bit outside of that scope, right? And also still apply to aspiring PMs as well. But in this day and age where every day there's like a new development, there's this new product that does something 50% faster,
Mhm.
where do you see kind of the near future of product management headed? A lot of doomsayers are like, this is going to go, extinct. There will be no such thing as a PM. And then there's the other side that's obviously like, there you will always, always, always need PMs. So I obviously don't know anything about this, but I am curious to hear your take on the near future AI overlap with product management.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say every time I go on LinkedIn and I go on my homepage, I see those doomsdayers
Okay, so
people.
it's not just me.
Oh
Good,
no, it's
good
not
to
just
know.
you. It's like
Okay.
every other post I see nowadays is like, is product management dead? Are we
Yep.
getting replaced? Like I stopped going on my homepage because of that. Not because of that, but for many reasons I don't
Yeah.
really focus on my home feed. Um but what I will say, just to answer the question that a lot of aspiring PMs and PMs have been asking me around, will I get replaced by AI? My answer to that is no, especially not anytime in the near future. But I definitely would say that, product management is going to evolve with these new innovations. And so it's important for us to be keeping up with, these new tools that are being released and understand how we can, upskill ourselves with these new advancements. To be more specific, there's a couple of different shifts that I think are happening, and this is actually another post I'm writing for next week.
Amazing. I'm getting
But
all of the exclusive
you're getting a
insights.
little sneak peek here.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, just quickly to list out the three shifts. The
Please,
first
yeah, yeah.
one is kind of the most basic, and I think it's the one that most of us are a little bit, we're pretty comfortable with, is automation of basic tasks. Things to keep this in like the product management world, it would be things like writing tickets, so
Mm.
Jira tickets,
PRDs, maybe even writing.
RDs. I do that a lot.
Nice.
Even if you want to use ChatGPT to strategize, like
Scoping, right? That type of thing.
scoping.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Even things like writing emails. If you want to check for grammar and make sure that you're like coming across the right way, like you can
Absolutely.
use
Yeah, I just
ChatGPT for
automatically
that.
assume everyone's doing that at this point.
Same, same. Like no
Okay.
shame,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. Of course, yeah.
Like people should be using it. So if I see a long
Absolutely.
dash, you know how there's like this big thing where people are like, don't use the long dash because
Yeah,
then people know you use ChatGPT. And
yeah.
I'm
The
like,
M dash. Yeah.
the M dash. Yeah, I'm like, oh, well, I mean, they should use ChatGPT. So I think that's the first shift, right? Is just automation of these basic tasks. And honestly, like you can probably save 1, 2, 3, like a good handful of hours per week just doing this. I think the second shift that we're going to start seeing more of is um, advancements, or I guess like innovations in how we're developing products. And so, what I mean by this is, you know, like in the discovery phase, for instance, I actually used to hand draw out a lot of wireframes. So I
Wow.
had like a visual in my head of what I
Uh,
wanted, what I thought the screen could look like.
yeah.
And I wanted to kind of brainstorm with my designer and get her idea. And hopefully she came up with something even better that I didn't think of. But nowadays I've heard of a lot of PMs using these tools to create wireframes.
Mm.
Give it a
Figma
couple
Make
prompts.
and
Hmm?
stuff like that, right? Figma Make, I think, is one
Yes.
of them that does that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's tools out there that help you generate wireframes. And I think that's really helpful when you're collaborating with your team, but also like if you're doing vision setting, trying to get some buy-in for a new initiative you want to get off the ground. I think you could use tools for that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes such a huge difference, like to see a fully polished screen versus, just kind of a wireframe. That's such a good point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovations there. Oh, and also like analyzing user feedback. I mean,
Mm.
Think
Yeah.
about the days where you had to look through your interview scripts and like, I guess do sentiment analysis or understand like pain points. Like this is becoming so much quicker now
Yeah.
with these tools. So
Yeah.
that's the second shift in my mind is just an overall improvement in how we're developing products with AI, both in terms of speed and quality. The third shift, I would say, is this rise of AI native features in products. And what I mean by this is more products on the market incorporating AI
Okay.
in the experience itself.
Interesting.
And this goes beyond, I think, even like chatbots and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
actually powering their product with these different algorithms to make this, experience really personalized to users. I mean, think about like all the different all the different job descriptions we're seeing out there nowadays are asking for like AI or ML experience,
Yeah.
at least some like experience with that. And so I do think we're going to see more and more products incorporating AI. And it'd be helpful for product managers to understand how exactly products like that are being built.
On the third shift that you said, there is something that I would appreciate if you can clarify for me, and this is kind of embarrassing, but so I had an idea for an app that kind of is a little bit like your co-pilot. So it there will pretend that there are ways where it finds out what you're reading, what your interests are, stuff like that. And really, it's a one of those one pager apps. So there's no menu, there's no buttons. All it has is your one page that opens when you click the icon. And all
Mm.
it does is every day, or not even every day actually, but every time you click it, it generates what it thinks according to its algorithm is like a list of 10 words that is not in your lexicon, but that should be. That's it. That's the whole app. Now, my like the reason I bring that up is that something that you would call one of the apps that you were just describing in the third shift? Like that's just completely AI, or is that way off?
Depends how the list of words are being generated. So,
Mm, fair.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, how do you see the
Mhm.
words being generated?
Yeah.
Is
So
it
I
through some sort of algorithm?
exactly, yeah. So it will just be borrowing from like a lexicon area, if we can visualize that, where these are words that are just slightly advanced. Maybe these can be synonyms or related in some way or the other to some of the words that it, like the algorithm knows that you are aware of or that you have seen before. So it does generate them. So there is a generative element to that, but I don't know how much. I mean, yeah, it is AI. I mean, going
I
off of
think
what
so.
some
Yeah,
of the labels that we see slapped on some of the products, like this is definitely AI compared
for
to,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
what's out there a little bit. So
I mean, I think like, and I'm not an expert in this area by any means,
absolutely,
right? I'm
yeah, yeah.
still learning too, but
Hmm.
I think it seems like there's a spectrum when it comes to AI features and how advanced they
Hmm.
get.
Yeah.
From the most basic level, it's like some sort of algorithm, right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
gets smarter with more information it knows
Correct.
about you.
Yeah.
But, you could take that so far. And so it could
True.
be
Oh,
so
I
advanced.
like that. So you're saying that to you, what makes it really AI is the learning element more so
I think
more so
so.
than the generative element.
I think so.
Which
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, that I would actually second that if I had to pick that as well. Yeah. Wow. I mean, we truly live in such exciting times.
we
Um
do.
that's honestly those were really all the topics that I wanted to pick your brain on, but I do want to give you a chance to share anything else with our listeners and anything that I missed, anything that you would want to share at the end of or which is now the end of this chat.
I mean, I just like to close by telling all of your listeners, and this is something I tell my followers and mentees as well, is, don't be afraid. Just get out there and try. I think a lot of things I've been able to achieve in my life was because I didn't necessarily have any sort of example to go off of. I just kind of went out there and tried to do it. It
Yeah.
was like that Swift class. It was a
Mhm.
complete disaster. But if I didn't try that, it wouldn't have led me to, really trying to find a co-founder and start the startup. And so everything's kind of a ripple effect. But the most important thing is that you get out there and try. don't be too afraid of what people are going to say or think of you, because ultimately, like, you can only, reach your goals and dreams if you put yourself out there and try.
I mean, I'm just actually a little bit blown away because that's exactly the purpose that this podcast serves to,
I love that.
fulfill. Yeah, like it's the Ready said do. It's literally all about the do. Like if you're not doing things, everybody has ideas. They're worth nothing, but it's all about um yeah. So I deeply resonate with what you said there, and yeah, thank you so much for taking the time here to share with us today. And also, just outside of this podcast, also thank you for posting such relevant, such rich content on LinkedIn. I really like everything about them, right from your very sticky branding to like your colors, your brand
Thank
identities.
you.
It's just such a great, almost, I mean, I know it's kind of like memed a little bit now, but I do think it is kind of a masterclass in how to build a personal brand as well, which I know at least is parallelly connected to product management also.
For sure.
So I've learned so much just, by, reading your posts and following you. And yeah, to anybody listening, it is a no-brainer to immediately go and engage with your posts and,
Thank
follow
you.
you on LinkedIn. And yeah, really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real blast. Thanks a lot.
That brings us to the end of that episode with Jackie Henning. Such incredible insights shared on how to break into product. If you would like to support me, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing on YouTube and leaving me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify or any of your favorite podcast apps. Something that goes a really long way for me is if by word of mouth you share or literally share like the link of these episodes with your friends and family. It really helps move the needle for me and help me break out of small channel hell. Catch you all in the next one. New episodes every Wednesday.